Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Patreon-sponsored review time again, and I've been talking this year about how I will often put my foot down when it comes to stuff people want me to cover that's longer. I get it. A lot of iconic, most remembered, still discussed stories in the medium are long. They take time to develop, to come together, and really let all their elements play out in various ways. I have several reasons why I split most of these longer videos into multiple parts the last several years. YouTube's algorithm changes what it favors all the time. Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 3 hours, but they seem okay with 20-minute stuff. My Patreon had a milestone wherein I stopped having mid-rolls in regular Atop the Fourth Wall episodes, and I want to stick with that, but if I'm doing 3 times the amount of work I'd normally do, I feel I should get compensation for that, hence multi-parters. And thus when a patron comes along and says, hey, I'd like you to look at either this entire 40-episode TV series or this 150-issue comic run, I have to turn them down. I'll do the TV equivalent of a 2-hour movie or up to 6 regular issues. That's it. So anyway, today we're looking at a 12-issue storyline, and I'm experimenting by making it one super long video with mid-rolls instead of 3. The nice thing about me getting to write my own rules is I get to decide when I'm okay with breaking them. I love this storyline, and I am happy to talk about it. That being said, there's plenty of it that's going to get just brushed over because of irrelevancy. Though as you can tell from the video length, there's still a lot to cover. But yeah, let's actually talk about what this is. Hush comes to us from issues number 608 to 619 in Batman, with absolutely gorgeous art by Jim Lee and writing from Jeff Loeb. And honestly, this is a chance to show off the two creators actually displaying some quality, because from Loeb, we've only really seen his writing on 3 terrible Ultimate Universe crossovers, while from Lee, we've seen his art from All-Star Batman and Robin, and Samurai Santa. Truly the highlights of his career. Okay, I suppose we saw Lee's art on X-Men number 1 too, but that was 90s Jim Lee. You see the foundations of some of his stuff, but it got a lot better over time, in my opinion. I should note, though, that Hush has gotten a lot of critical reevaluation over the years, some of it even present at the time of its release, painting it in definitely more of a negative light. I think Hush is great, but I'd be lying if I said it was perfect. There's plenty of meandering, plenty of aspects that don't go anywhere, or at least are pretty blatant red herrings to what the story is about. A mystery. And that mystery aspect is also why people were excited about it. Loeb has gotten a lot of acclaim over the years thanks to a few limited series he had done that were also mysteries. Batman The Long Halloween in particular. I reread it in anticipation of this review, and it's pretty good, though I originally didn't like The Long Halloween and its follow-ups for a few reasons. The one that still holds up for me is that it focuses on something that, based on comments from the Cassandra Cain perspective, I am in the minority on. Gotham's crime families. I find Gotham's organized crime families dull, interchangeable, and unmemorable. I can name a couple because of their significance in, say, TV and movies, or Dick Grayson's backstory, but that's it. Other people have said they love that aspect of it and happily know all about the intricacies of the crime war stuff, but personally, I prefer seeing Batman being pitted against supervillains, which in turn is why I probably enjoy Hush a lot more, because it's all about showing off Batman's rogues gallery, even if a lot of their appearances don't actually matter that much. Let's dig into Batman Hush, and we'll go over its good and bad parts.
Atop the fourth wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. What's with these awkward subjects? What's all this art so rubbish? To anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your
reading from 2 trades here, so no looking at all the covers. Instead, I'll mention that while on this show I tend to focus primarily on the writer and penciler of a book, and in particular this one I've heaped tons of praise on Jim Lee, it wouldn't be as good without the inks and colors, which were done by Scott Williams and Alex Sinclair respectively. Both jobs are equally as important, and I don't throw enough credit to those jobs, so kudos to them. And that's especially important for the sake of this bit they included before the story begins. Not sure if this was in any of the original issues, but it's a 2-page recap of Batman's origin story narrated by Alfred. This sort of thing should really be included in any trade for the sake of a new reader, and in this case, it's just gorgeous. Most striking, and what's always stuck with me, is this shot of young Bruce's eyes, the mixture of sadness, anger, and intensity, with a few specks of blood on his face. And sure, the narration helps amplify it, but this shot is basically the birth of Batman in a single panel. Plus, it's just a lot more dignified than Frank Miller's, "I touched my mother's breast, it bled on me." Using his family's wealth, Master Bruce sought out the world's greatest minds in criminology, martial arts, and the craft of detecting, and then poisoned them all with what's in that test tube so that he could be considered the best in those fields. We truly open Batman number 608 at the Gotham shipyard. We have a bunch of quick-cut actions to see Batman taking out some armed goons to rescue a kidnapped child who's being held for ransom. He recovers the kid, noting that the goons that were chosen for this job were expensive ones.
But as Bruce Wayne will attest, you have to spend money to make money. That's why I spend millions on customizing all my equipment to resemble bats. The long-term plan really is just merchandising.
Okay, not all the artwork can be as gorgeous as the eyes, as indicated by Batman's gigantic arm here, making a "I'm going to crush your testicles" pose. There's some good narration here as Bruce thinks about how Superman would have handled this hostage situation. Not just that he'd be able to bend steel, get in and out, but how he'd be smiling at the kid and saying something reassuring. As I've noted before on this show, the true purpose of Batman is to ensure that no child ever experiences what he had to go through as a kid, and the fear that this kid has is going to be similar even if his parents are alive. It's hard for Bruce to drop the dark, serious mystique even if he doesn't want the kids scared. Then again, a smiling, friendly Batman can be just as terrifying for a small child.
Don't worry, kid! I am the knight! Give me a hug!
He gets the kid onto the deck of his ship, where we see the guy behind the kidnapping. Killer Croc, who's looking far more bestial than normal. The ransom was for $10 million, and both the family and cops wanted to pay it, but Batman decided to go in and rescue the kid. Now Croc is back with the money. Bruce notes that this is a job outside of Croc's wheelhouse, especially in how it required precise timing, and Croc is not really the master planner type. Still, he will later admit that he needed the money to reverse his current condition. Once Batman knocks him down, the FBI move in to apprehend him, though in the scuffle, the money ended up getting tossed away and stolen by Catwoman. He spots her and follows, noting that like Croc's kidnapping attempt, her stealing someone else's take on a job isn't her style. As he chases her, he notes that she's been making attempts to be on the right side of the law recently, so also her suddenly being a thief seems suspicious as well. However, before he can continue his thoughts, something cuts his rope line. He quickly tries to break his fall, though only really resulting in breaking his shoulder and then several other parts of his body, as he lands in Crime Alley. Hush is intended as a mystery story, and this is laying down the very basic groundwork. 2 villains now operating outside their usual MO, and even the bat line getting cut so that Batman lands in Crime Alley is deliberate. Basically, you know how some fandoms will analyze every frame of a TV show to search for clues left by the creators? Well, Hush is a story where that kind of thinking kind of pays off, because a lot of this story is just full of clues. Mind you, the resolution of some of those clues can be unsatisfying, but there is a lot of thought that went into this. As a bunch of homeless people spot Batman falling and decide to attack with their comically oversized knives, Catwoman arrives at the Gotham Tower apartments with the money, delivering it to Poison Ivy. This brings us to number 609, opening with Bruce barely conscious as Oracle tries to contact him or any members of the Bat family to come to his aid.
I've managed to press the alarm signal on the utility belt to alert her.
The bums try to unmask him, but the Batsuit is laced with several automatic defenses for that. Gas, a way to electrocute people, that sort of thing. One guy decides to just shoot him, which, if Batman Odyssey is anything to go by, will also do nothing but release a bunch of blood packets. But fortunately, aid comes in the form of Huntress, whom Oracle seemed a bit condescending to when she said she could come to the rescue. Her character arc would see a lot more work done between her and Oracle over in the pages of Birds of Prey, but in the meantime, she's arrived in a costume that premiered here. It's overall okay, except for one bizarre creative choice. A belly window. It's an odd choice, especially because she had actually been shot in the stomach during the events of No Man's Land, and there doesn't seem to be any sign of that injury. So it's not even like a, check it out, I lived kind of thing. And it's not even like her costume's a crop top or something. There's just a big hole right there. At least with a boob hole, you can at least conceive of attempted sexiness factor thanks to exposed cleavage, but unless you've got a stomach fetish, which I can totally believe is a thing, I've been on the internet long enough, what's the point? Gail Simone would explain it away in Birds of Prey number 59 as her wanting to show off her abs after 700 sit-ups a day, which feels wholly inadequate to me. In any case, Huntress manages to take them down despite getting hit herself several times, her dialogue indicating how she refuses to fail in front of Batman. Oracle remote pilots the Batmobile to them and has her put him in the car, though she notes that his body feels utterly broken. As they both drive off, a figure in bandages watches from the roof above. Without friends, no one would choose to live. Psh, says you! I've got Masterpiece Soundwave, I don't need friends! After Poison Ivy drops off half the cash that was stolen with the bandaged figure, at least presumably we don't actually see him, we cut to the Batcave, where Alfred is attempting to mend the damage to his body, and attempting being the key word here. His skull is fractured and there's just too much for Alfred to do. They plan on bringing in some experts, have Nightwing wreck one of Bruce's car to make it look like an auto accident, but apparently Bruce is still partially conscious, since he taps out with his hand a name in Morse code. Thomas Elliott, a childhood friend of Bruce's who has become a world-class surgeon. Thomas is a retcon, but it's not a particularly egregious one, and a reminder that retcons are not necessarily bad, just in the end how they're handled. DC's usual approach to retcons is burn it all down except for that one thing right there, which will staple to the new thing even if they don't work together. In this case, it's just adding a new layer to Bruce's life that isn't often explored. His childhood in these stories usually begins and ends with his parents' death, or his parents telling him that rock and roll is evil, thus fueling a lifelong vendetta. But this is the story of Bruce's best friend as a child. The cover story is put out and Thomas is brought in to save Bruce's life. Bruce, if you wanted to get together after all this time, you didn't have to try to kill yourself to do it. Then again, you may still not want to, since I'm sure this piece of skull I'm removing from your brain is going to erase your memory of me. And on the subject of that retcon, here's another bit of artwork this story is well known for. These wonderful watercolor painted flashbacks to their childhood. The two play... I'm not sure exactly. I want to say it's a variation of Risk, but the point is that Tommy beats Bruce by being several steps ahead of him. After the surgery is successful, we end part 2 with the bandaged figure cutting out Bruce's picture from the paper and quoting Aristotle again. "We make war, that we may live in peace." Huh. Well, according to Superman and the quest for peace, the reason we don't have peace yet is that we just don't want it bad enough. So what you're saying is we should make more war! Part 3 begins with several pages showing Batman tricking Killer Croc into escaping Arkham, with the hope that they can track him back to whoever orchestrated the kidnapping, letting loose the violent monster who has already kidnapped a child. Yep, Bruce is definitely recovering from brain surgery. While Bruce drives off in pursuit of Croc, Tommy Elliott's car drives up to Wayne Manor, Oracle of course informing him and Alfred of his arrival. "You sure I can't entice you to come home, sir? After all, Dr. Elliott only saved your life."
I would if I could, Alfred.
I believe that's "I could if I would" in your case, sir.
Just make the usual excuse, please.
Consider it done, sir. "I'm sorry, Dr. Elliott, but Master Bruce has gone down to his man cave to smash VHS tapes with a sledgehammer. He always leaves instructions not to be disturbed." Alfred feigns surprise at Tommy's arrival. "No need to apologize, Alf. I'm delighted that despite a few years and a few pounds, you still recognize me." "Well, sir, I have the advantage of seeing Master Bruce put on those same few years and few pounds, as you put it. Twice, in fact, since one time he turned into a baby. I, had forgotten your delightful penchant for calling me Alf, oddly enough. Well, to be fair, you did eat a cat that one time." Alfred informs him that Bruce is out looking for women to bang, and Tommy cryptically warns him that Bruce is playing a dangerous game, though says he means it in the way of how he should be recovering from surgery alone in bed. A flashback reveals why he might be especially ominous concerning car crashes. One night, the young Tommy arrived at the Waynes to stay with them after his parents were in a car accident. Bruce swears to Tommy that his father will save them. He was head of trauma surgery at Gotham City Hospital at the time. However, the news soon comes. While he was able to save his mother's life, Tommy's father didn't make it. He even punches the young Bruce for telling him everything would be okay. To continue our car accident theme, during the pursuit, someone shoots out the left front tire of the Batmobile, causing it to crash. Fortunately, no major damage from this, although Bruce is responsible for breaking his hand once he smashes it through the window to get out. Hate to say it, Bruce, but the insurance is gonna eat you alive for causing further damage to the vehicle after the crash. The Batmobile's tires are top of the line, the same kind of heavy-duty stuff used for presidential motorcades, so a blowout is nearly impossible to happen. Thus he knows someone deliberately shot it out. Croc ends up going to the top of a high-rise, the one Poison Ivy was using, only to find Catwoman there also looking for her. Both were apparently set up by Ivy, Catwoman saying that Ivy told her to meet her there, and Croc getting word from her that Catwoman was the one who stole the money and could be found there. Fortunately, Bats arrives to save her from the attack, having heard enough. There does seem to be a detail missing, Batman narrating that he's relieved that Catwoman didn't seem to be responsible for her own actions, but nothing in the dialogue here indicates that she was under mind control. Batman wants Croc to try to help him find out if Ivy is being manipulated in all this, but he's quickly recaptured by the FBI. Mysterious bandaged man is on a nearby rooftop observing this with more Aristotle. All men, by nature, desire knowledge. Batman somehow is able to hear something from that distance while in the rain and swings his head around to see.
Excuse me, the quote is, all men by nature desire to know, not knowledge. This is why I'm the world's greatest detective, and you think standing in the rain with nothing but bandages and a trench coat is a good idea.
Also, a building with Robins on it in huge letters. Clue, or just massive coincidence on this villain's part. 6 days later, Batman hasn't turned up any new clues, but Catwoman soon finds him and tells him that she's found Poison Ivy in Metropolis. She wants in on taking her down, also admitting that she's never properly thanked him for saving her life on so many occasions. Thus, the two begin making out.
Criminals, by nature, are a cowardly and superstitious lot. Also immensely horny. To instill fear into their hearts, I became a bat. A monster in the night. To instill lust in their hearts, I stuffed the front of the bat pants. A porn star in the night. And in doing so, have I become the very thing that all monsters become? Alone?
He says this while making out with a woman, and earlier having pointed out the string of people who saved his life because he is not in any way alone. Now, the greatest clue and biggest machination of this mysterious villain? Pulling the moon closer to Earth so that it's friggin' huge in the sky. Seriously, why do comics keep doing that? It's not making the scenes more dramatic or romantic or anything, it's just distracting. Anyway, that brings us to part 4, where Bruce travels to Metropolis.
It is very different from Gotham City, even though they are apparently right next to each other.
He admits he has several reasons for wanting to avoid the town, one of which being it's suspicious for Batman to be there, but Bruce Wayne making an appearance isn't weird at all, given his business interests.
Try to stay focused, not to think about Selina. It'd be really awkward to have a bat boner in the middle of a meeting. Or maybe that'd be good for the company, especially after the brain surgery. Who the hell knows how stocks work?
He admits the last time he wanted to be there was as a child, visiting it alongside Tommy in winter, leading to some flashback panels. And of course, Tommy himself makes an appearance at the airport by coincidence.
Bruce, it is you!
I've been yelling like a fool halfway across the airport.
I'm sorry, Tommy. My mind must have been... I was just thinking about you.
Uh-huh. More like you were thinking about skirts, if half of what your reputation is true.
Damn it, he noticed the bat boner!
The two reminisce about what they saw in Metropolis that day, and once again it's gorgeous. the Alan Scott Green Lantern fighting the villain Icicle, which is, of course, pretty spectacular for two little kids who had never seen a superhero in person before. Tommy once again tells Bruce that he needs to take it easy after the brain surgery, though he'd love to stop by and play another game of Risk or whatever with the game pieces. Bruce stops into the Daily Planet, since he's actually the owner of it during this time. Not sure why he specifically stops by the Daily Planet, since he admits in his narration that he didn't really want to tell Clark he was coming to town out of fear that he'd be judgmental over working with Selina, though the same narration serves the purpose of comparing his relationship to that of Lois and Clark, wondering if he could be as open about his secret identity to Selina like Clark was to Lois. It's moments like these that help make the book. Loeb really has a grasp on Bruce's character, not just his skills and intellect, but his insecurities and hang-ups. He's willing to let Bruce be vulnerable to the reader and not just be constantly awesome all the time and grumpy about everything around him like some writers would. I think there's only one way we're gonna find out what Bruce is up to. Have fun being all tights and flights. Remember, despite how he behaves when he's, you know, that you two are friends. Damn it, Lois, he's breaking the code! This is over there to him! And as we are over there, we need to solve our own problems! Later, Batman goes to Lexcorp, currently managed by Talia al Ghul, since Luthor, upon becoming president, needed to divest himself of his former conflict of interests. Which is why the comparisons between Luthor and certain other parties never sat right with me. Luthor is not an idiot and at least tried to maintain the illusion of playing by the rules. Just saying, Anton York, 45th President of the United States, wouldn't stand for some of the crap politicians pull. Anyway, Bats is here to try to find out if she supplied anyone with large quantities of ethylene. Not the gas, but the plant hormone that's used for encouraging plant and flower ripening. A humming sound comes from Bruce as he talks about it. You're vibrating. Actually, I'm pretty sure the kids these days call it vibing. It's just always nice to see you, Talia. You're not secretly raising my biological son right now, are you? She says she'll get him the information he seeks. The vibration is actually a pager, specifically one that Bruce had given Selina earlier, just in case she found Ivy first. Batman meets with Catwoman on top of a train in the city, admitting that she's so determined to find Ivy because of the brainwashing. Ivy took control of my mind. She made me do things I may have been prone to, but that's my decision. No one gets to violate me like that. This comic came out in 2003, and it makes me wonder if that was slipped in specifically as foreshadowing for Identity Crisis, since it'd be revealed later that Zatanna altered Catwoman's mind too. Anyway, she says she'll meet him at Ivy's location, since both have found out where she is, and cartwheels off the train. Bruce remains to just stand there and pose while on the train, while holding his cape dramatically. Yeah, it looks cool and all, dude, but remember, you're still on the train.
Ow! The dust! It's like being shot in the eyes by a glitter gun.
The two engage Ivy, ready to take her back to Gotham, but the issue ends with the revelation that she's got Superman under mind control, who now acts as her guard. And thus, with part 5 of this little adventure, we see Batman's keen intelligence, preparation, and strategy come to fruition with his brilliant plan.
Run away! Run away! Run away!
Yeah, Superman's heat vision blasts a few holes down through the building and into the waterfront the building is on, allowing the two to swim away. They head into a nearby sewer system, lined with lead thanks to Lex Luthor's paranoia, and making everyone else in Metropolis paranoid too thanks to all the lead poisoning in their brains. You've studied Superman, haven't you?
He's the best at what he does.
That's open to debate. I mean, as far as I know, there's never been a Wolverine versus Superman crossover.
I said he's the best at what he does, not at what I do. Fashioning radioactive rocks to jewelry. It's a skill that most of my fans tend to overlook.
Batman quickly comes up with a plan, setting up a few bombs to attract Superman's attention while Catwoman goes off to run an errand. She kisses him, saying she may not have a chance to later, though Batman isn't worried in that regard. He knows that if Superman truly wanted to kill him, all he'd have to do is use his super speed to smash him into cement. Even under mind control, he's not gonna murder anyone.
Deep down, Clark's essentially a good person. And deep down, I'm not. I never put the cart away after loading my groceries.
He does his best, use the environment to stun Superman, but of course a fight with Superman is not one you can win the longer it goes. So the fight was more about buying time for Selina, who got into the Daily Planet and grabbed Lois Lane, tossing her off a flagpole, Well, admittedly, Lois elbowed her into doing so, and Clark's natural instincts to save Lois kicked in and overrode the mind control. Once he's free, the two heroes talk about this. Ivy's mind control kiss shouldn't normally work given Superman's biology, but she clearly had some help. Access to synthetic green kryptonite in her lipstick. Neither of them think they can pick up her trail before she gets away, but they realize they do have someone who can. And thus later at the Metropolis Plaza, the two confront her. She tries to run off, but they have the best tracker in the world backing them up. Krypto the Superdog. Though I've got to say, there's something silly about how Krypto is drawn floating in the air as if he was standing. Also, something weird about this comic showcasing a huge amount of Batman's friends and enemies, even Krypto the Superdog, but no appearance by Ace the Bat-Hound? With Ivy captured, Soups and Bats reflect on what happened. Soups being a little mad that Lois was put in danger. You could have gotten Lois killed. No. I believed in you. Bruce, this is why fans ship us. As long as the fan art always depicts me being the top, it's all good. I'm Batman. Thank you. Now more than ever, I know I gave the ring to the right person. What are friends for? Friendship means being ready to poison your other friends with radiation. What are friends for? Hey, that's not an Aristotle quote. Did you already blow your load with your last quote about friends? Part 6 brings us to the Gotham Opera House, where there's a charity performance of Pagliacci being performed for the sake of Leslie Tompkins' clinic. Both Tommy Elliott and Selina Kyle are also at the performance. The opera. Oddly enough, it was my father's passion and not my mother's. Rock operas were the only kind of rock and roll my father approved of. Still, I could have lived without 15 performances of Tommy in a row. There was something about the opera, how they often ended in tragedy, that my father found appealing. We were this close to Phantom of the Paradise being his inspiration and not Zorro. The show gets started, singing some strange lyrics, but let's have some more Bat narration. The evening is made only more complicated by the inclusion of Selina Kyle. While I know that she is Catwoman, she does not know about my secret. So Bruce, what's your favorite part of the opera? The fact that I'm Batman, crap! And as Batman and Catwoman, hidden behind those masks, we have begun a romance that Bruce Wayne and Selina do not share. God, we're the Pina Colada song of superhero romances. We are the stuff of great opera, Alfred has commented. Master Bruce, I will never seriously tell you to stop being Batman, because Young and the Restless has got nothing on you, and Alfred needs his stories. But yeah, it's revealed that the clown is in fact Harley Quinn. I think it was to break expectations, especially since there's a famous bit from the Adam West series where the Joker was doing Pagliacci under a mask, and the readers might have expected it to be referenced here. But no, Harley and her goons start robbing the attendees, Harley zeroing in on Tommy Elliott when he tries to call the police. My sources had her working out of Metropolis of late, teamed with Poison Ivy. When are those two gonna tie the knot already? Oh my god, Alfred was right. This is better than regular soap operas. After taking a few items from the group, she in particular grabs a jade pendant that Tommy was wearing, a gift from his mother. I know something of a mother's things that are taken by a thief in the night. Do you though? I mean, Joe Chill didn't really get away with the pearls, now did he? Another flashback reveals how important the pendant is to Tommy, so it's no surprise that when Harley flips away, he chases after her while the goons open fire above the crowd to distract them. Bruce slips off to change, Leslie Tompkins encouraging Selina to do the same. She had invited her. Apparently they were friends over in the pages of Catwoman. Batman soon arrives and deals with the goons first to protect the audience. Tisk, 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 Mr. B. You really only know how to stick to the script, huh? Script? In the past, Harley has been, at best, delusional. But could this entire robbery be scripted? And for whom? Well, DC has been pushing Harley as their answer to Deadpool. Maybe she finally just started embracing it and is breaking the fourth wall. Catwoman saves him with boot to the head, though she does get shot in the shoulder as Harley makes her escape. Leslie Tompkins comes down with her first aid kit, while the audience apparently thinks this was all part of the show. I mean, personally, I'm down for any opera that decides to throw Batman into it. Keeps things interesting. Tommy Elliott catches up with Harley to try to get back the pendant, but he gets kicked in the chud here. He continues on after her as she exits the building, Batman right behind them, only for him to hear a gunshot, and find the Joker crouched over Tommy's body, holding a gun to end Part 6. There was something about the opera how they often ended in tragedy that my father found appealing. Then again, my dad really liked Perez Hilton, so maybe he had bad taste. Part 7, issue number 614, kind of has an absolutely perfect cover, since it completely sums up the issue. Batman choking the Joker to death. The issue is promoted as being the one that would finally explain why Batman has never killed the Joker. And unsurprisingly, and kind of boringly given the hype, the answer is because it would betray his morality and turn him into the very thing he fights against. People understandably object to that, though to answer the hype, what the hell were people expecting the answer to be? That Joker is a special bomb that would go off if he was ever killed or something? Or that the Joker was secretly a family member? There is no satisfying answer beyond his morality. So let's talk about that for a second. Me personally, I do not want him to kill, and I question any story where he does so. Yes, even the Tim Burton Batman movies. Much as I love them, him being a killer in those bothers me. The rest of the package is good enough for me that it doesn't ruin the films, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't an issue. To me, superheroes, in particular DC stable, are supposed to be characters we aspire to be. Paragons and legends that try to make us better people. Batman is the height of what a normal human being can do if they're dedicated enough. One of the smartest, most physically adept people on the planet. Admittedly, he kind of needed excessive amounts of money in order to do those things, but even comparing Bruce Wayne to real-world billionaires is laughable. I mean, for one thing, Bruce seems to actually pay his employees a living wage and kicks out the greedy and corrupt. Point is, to me, Batman's morality, his unwillingness to kill after what happened to his family, is a core part of his identity and something to aspire to be. I find killing morally abhorrent, but I also know that if the situation called for it, I don't know if I'd be able to stick to my principles if it meant staying alive or protecting a loved one. But Batman is supposed to be better than that. The people of the DC universe need him and Superman and others to be better than that, since they assign so much moral authority and legal guardianship of the world to them. Our protectors need to be paragons if we're to trust them with the power we grant them. The instant you do allow him to kill, even just once, you can't trust that he'd never do it again. That in the right circumstances, Batman will take a life. Thus it taints the character, the unbreakable man whose moral code is so against killing, all you gotta do is push him hard enough and then he'll do it. It'd justify the Joker's position of one bad day being enough to drive a man mad. And let's face it, you can argue as much as you want about, but Batman's letting the Joker get away with more murder every single time he doesn't kill him. But really it's saying that the hundreds, if not thousands of other people who more regularly see the Joker on a daily basis in Arkham, or have to drag him back when the Joker is stopped in his latest evil scheme, are even more guilty than Batman is, because they could also do it but choose not to. Don't put the blame on one character who has a strong moral code when there are others who don't but still choose to let him live. Or, as you should be doing, blame the writers for constantly trying to one-up the horrific crimes of the Joker so that he's got more of a body count than some genocidal dictators. Remember, these characters aren't real. Writers decide what they do, including every single new supporting character who dies at the Joker's hands. And this issue lays it out hard. Barbara Gordon in The Killing Joke, Sarah Essen from The End of No Man's Land, Jason Todd in Death in the Family, and now Tommy Elliott, who earlier in this story saved Bruce's life. Batman narrates that Nightwing once told him that he and the Joker were forever linked in battle. Batman is the order in Gotham City, and the Joker the chaos that disrupts that order, that they exist because of each other. I will not accept any responsibility for the Joker. Except that I should have killed him long ago. Chills. Honest to God chills reading this originally. Where the hell was this Jeff Loeb for Ultimatum? So, here's the funny thing. I mean, not ha-ha funny, but still. The Joker didn't do this, as he keeps telling Batman. Not that Batman believes him, but it's the truth. And the issue continues on like this, with dramatic narration from Batman as he chases after him, kicking Harley into some garbage for trying to defend the Joker, even while he tries to prove his innocence by saying his gun is full of blanks. We get some more gorgeous watercolor paintings depicting the Joker's past crimes. I think of Barbara, and snapping the Joker's neck becomes that much easier. I think of the animated Killing Joke adaptation, and it gets really easy. Catwoman, recovering from her gunshot wound, tries to stop him. This one's a little iffier for me, since Selina seems like the type to be perfectly okay with this, though again, she was mind-wiped by Zatanna. She'd end up later killing Black Mask for some of the messed up stuff he did to her friends. And after that, I'm kinda iffy about Bats' continued association with her, but that's something for another time. For now, though, she says she's trying to stop him from something he'll regret later. Hopefully, he'll regret knocking her out by hitting her in the bullet wound later, after some more artwork to remind us of Jason Todd's death. Oh, we get another watercolor one, but this time done more like a blue pencil sketch, since it's a theoretical one. Batman imagining what would happen if one day he found her killed by the Joker as well. Still, gotta give points to the Joker for also graffitiing his face on not only the walls in the alley, but on the frickin' moon too. Go big or go home, I guess. Graffiti. Fun or homicidal? The Joker used the distraction to run away, but Batman soon grabs him and prepares to kill him. But one last person has come to stop him, firing a few shots that graze him. It's Commissioner Gordon, and damn, his aim is good. Even with how close he is, that seems good. Well, I say Commissioner, but he was retired during this time. All I can do is appeal to you through our friendship. I wouldn't let you do this when he shot my daughter, killed my wife. I don't know how I could stop you, but I won't let you throw your life away. Just shoot him in the legs like I did. Sure, it won't kill him, but it is surprisingly satisfying. You and I have seen more than our fair share of tragedies and thirsted for revenge. Batman wanted to be a killer. He could have started long ago. So what you're saying is I could have saved a lot of time by starting long ago. How many more lives are we gonna let him ruin? I don't care. I won't let him ruin yours. Could I at least cut off his face or something? Nah, I feel like he'd be kind of into that. Gordon leads him away as the Joker weakly states that he's innocent. And above, our bandaged man pulls out a coin and flips it, revealing a scarred other side to it. He is innocent. Get the joke? Do you get it, audience? I could flip the coin again if you don't. Yeah, this is our first big red herring as to the identity of this enemy, whom I'll now refer to by his name, Hush. With the coin and the bandages, it seems to suggest that it's Two-Face. But like I said, it's a red herring. And it wouldn't really be as compelling a mystery if the audience already knew who was responsible and is just waiting for Batman to play catch-up. That being said, while this is a great panel and I absolutely love it, it's kind of nonsensical, since who the hell is Hush talking to? Why are they flipping the coin as if they were Harvey Dent? Or is this Harvey Dent, since to further the red herring, we'll later see him in a similar outfit pulling bandages off of his face, but then who is he talking to? Anyway, that brings us to part 8. We begin with Tommy Elliott's funeral. Dr. Thomas Elliott used his skills as a surgeon to save the lives that others would have taken away. Unfortunately, there was no one skilled enough to save him. Atop! Seems that he was still alive after the Joker shot him, and, he might have lived if Batman had gotten him to the hospital instead of trying to murder the Joker. Good thing Batman isn't here to feel really embarrassed about that or anything. Dick, you ever hear Bruce talk about this guy before? No, but you're young and haven't really encountered many retcons yet. Just roll with it. Dick points out the more obvious reason for this, that Bruce doesn't really talk a lot about his childhood. After the funeral, Bruce is in the cave studying the details of the murder. I have been awake for 56 hours. I'm determined that the mastermind behind all this is Freddy Krueger. I'm pretty sure I can outwit him if I can just stay awake. Nightwing is there too, doing some acrobatics as he tries to talk to Bats about all this, and reassure him that at least they caught the bad guy, but Bruce reveals that, indeed, the Joker didn't kill Tommy. As the computer said, the bullet that killed Tommy Elliott came from a standard-issue gun from the Gotham Police Department. Bruce was set up to see what he was supposed to see, the idea that the Joker killed him, but he didn't actually see the Joker do it. Whoever's responsible for all this has been manipulating his rogues gallery, implying either someone new or someone old trying something new. That narrows it down to, say, half the criminal population of Gotham City. If detective work was easy, everyone would be doing it. You know, like being a YouTuber. I get told all the time by people who hate me that what I do isn't hard. Was that humor? Now I am worried about you. It even got to me. I almost killed the Joker. I honestly wanted to. And frankly, after something like that, you just gotta laugh. Oracle chimes in to inform them that the Riddler has just hijacked an armored car with $11 million, so if they're interested, they can head out and deal with him. Yeah, Batman's gonna be great help, what with the lack of recovery from his numerous injuries in this, plus the lack of sleep in over 2 days. Batman says that they'll take the car, and we get a gorgeous fan service shot. A 2-page spread showing off all the various Batmobiles he's had over the years, both in comics and other media. It's pointless, but fun and cool to see. Frank Miller would try to do a similar shot in Aspar with the pages even folding out, and it was considerably less interesting than this. It may not seem like much today when that kind of fan service is pretty common in media, but honestly it was rare back in the day, which is kind of what makes this shot of all those Batmobiles so cool. Check it out, the Batmobile they picked even has headlights that project a bat symbol. Bruce is nothing if not on brand. So, word under the street is you're seeing Catwoman. Any truth in that? I take it by your silence, it is true. The other word under the street is that you won't go under her, if you know what I mean.
Okay, well that one I will deny. I'm Batman. I trained to be the best at everything. Dick has always spoken to me without fear. No matter what else has happened to us through the years, he has earned that right.
Bruce, do you ever feel, not so fresh? Dick tells him that he's not going to try to discourage him since the relationship seems to be making him happier despite everything else going on, but does say that he should tell her who he is, since that's been a sticking point in a lot of his other past relationships. Listen, Bruce, if you do decide to have that conversation with her, you might want to shave first. Just saying, when you go under her.
Oh my god, Dick! No one's even gonna get that reference in a few years!
They catch up to the Riddler and quickly deal with his goons, Batman narrating about how he's wrestled with the decision of whether or not it was right to train him like he did, but that ultimately Dick isn't like him.
He didn't come from a world of privilege. He was a performer, gifted in that way. For instance, look at how he's performing a tracheotomy on this guy. And while at the time, the transition from Robin to Nightwing was difficult for us both, especially with him and all his friends getting betrayed and Deathstroke and the Hive almost murdering them, that was a weird weekend. It was a day I had long prepared myself for because Dick was born to be in the center ring.
It's always nice to have a story that reminds us that Batman actually is incredibly proud of Dick and how he holds his own as his own hero. And then the next Batman project Jim Lee worked on was like, hey, what if Batman made Dick eat rats? The Riddler tries to get away in the confusion, carrying a lot of the money with him, but he's quickly found out.
I think about Edward Nygma and the life he has had as the Riddler, where once his obsessive need to leave riddles as clues would confound me, everything about him has become routine. Except his fashion sense. Man, I know that I could pull off the green suit, but no! According to Alfred, the world isn't ready for Mountain Pursuit Batman!
He makes note that while all his other villains seem to be operating differently, this is old hat for the Riddler. In turn, he wonders if he was deliberately left out of this or seen as unworthy. Batman checks over the armored car and detects trace amount of ash, specifically the kind found in one of Ra's al Ghul's Lazarus pits. The issue ends with dual events occurring. The Joker gets to meet his attorney, the guy in the bandages, revealed as Harvey Dent, but without his facial scars.
So, you had a little plastic surgery done. Okay, a lot of plastic surgery done. What's this all about, Two-Face?
Sorry, Two-Face is gone. I'm One-Face now, and I will become Batman's worst enemy. The other event occurring as Hush is supposedly revealing himself is Bruce unmasking himself to Catwoman.
So, where do we go from here?
You could find a razor, and a bath wouldn't kill you.
Selena, I have been awake for almost 3 days straight. I'm pretty sure you're not actually here, and I'm making out with that tiger over there.
Part 9 begins weirdly. Bruce decides to break into Talia's corporate jet while it's in flight to kidnap her, in order to get her father's attention, even though she admits the two are not on speaking terms right now. His logic is that Ra's will never allow any harm to come to her, thus this will draw him out. My logic is, even estranged, she will probably know how to contact him without pulling this kind of stunt. We even get a filler page where President Luthor is informed about this, and he decides to do nothing for now. Nor will he ever. Anyway, Ra's responds quicker than Batman expected, leaving a sword sticking out of the Bat computer.
Wow, I kidnapped his daughter and he destroys my gaming rig. With all the Bitcoin crap going on, I'm not gonna get a good video card anytime soon. Well played, Ra's.
No, he thinks maybe Alfred would be attacked in retaliation, But of course, Alfred is fine, and they deduce that maybe he wants to draw Batman out of Gotham for some reason. Meanwhile, Jim Gordon is visited by Harvey Dent, who claims that he's been cured of being Two-Face. He says his license has been reinstated, so he is a legit attorney again, and got the Joker released because, indeed, he was innocent. Still a dick move, Harvey. You know, he is guilty of a few other things. He also says that he's the one who contacted Gordon to be there when it happened. What's more, the bullet that killed Tommy Elliott is going to be traced back to Gordon's gun, the one he turned in when he retired as commissioner. That clue leads nowhere. Completely forgotten. Harvey says that this is all part of an elaborate game and that they need to help Batman. Back over to Bats, he used details on the sword to find Raish's location in North Africa. Appropriate, of course, since Raish is the one who always refers to him as Detective. You think I am responsible for your recent misfortunes? The death of your friend Thomas Elliott, for example. You are mistaken. Well, okay, I do admit to filling your shampoo bottle with mustard. I just thought that was hilarious. Raish has the means, opportunity, and knowledge of his personal life to pull this off, but he still denies any involvement. Instead, he offers a duel. Defeat him and he'll help solve this conundrum, lose and release Talia, and die. And so, cool sword fight, even if it feels a bit like padding. Meanwhile, Catwoman is holding Talia as her prisoner, but Raish had dispatched the assassin and mother of best Batgirl Cassandra Cain, Lady Shiva, to free her. And as good as Catwoman is, Lady Shiva is better. She almost kills her, but Talia is freed and smashes a chair into her to knock her out. Tell my father to stay out of my life.
I mean, technically, he has stayed out.
Bruce stabs Raish with a sword. Not immediately fatal, but enough to force him to admit defeat so he can get medical help or a Lazarus pit. Raish opens up because whoever this new enemy is, he's made an enemy of Raish as well. Several months ago, someone used one of those few remaining Lazarus pits, denying Raish the ability to do so. Ask yourself, detective, who in your life would wish to come back from the dead? My God! My parents are alive! In retrospect, the Two-Face red herring is kinda clever here. As Gordon pointed out, this is not the first time that Harvey has supposedly gotten cured. Time and again, his psychosis gets the better of him, and he burns half his face away to resume being Two-Face. If we assume that Harvey was just manipulating Gordon when he went to see him, and he really is Hush, then we can infer that he took a dip in the Lazarus pit to heal himself. And since the pit routinely drives you insane for a bit after that dip, maybe it changed Harvey into this new personality, or a merging of the two halves of himself. It's not how this will actually play out, but one of the things I like about this story is that even the red herrings present tantalizingly believable options. Bruce returns to Gotham and finds Talia having healed Catwoman with some special herbs. Otherwise, Shiva would have likely killed her. Talia's okay with Bruce's relationship with her, but does warn that his opponent will likely use their relationship against him. Next is an interlude where Catwoman is brought back to the Batcave and even sees the level of scars that Bruce has on his back from all the fighting he's done over the years. Plus a few more just from the last few issues. I have made a decision to bring Catwoman back to the cave. I did not do this cavalierly. The cave, in so many ways, is my most private place. Not even Alfred knows about all the Playboys I have stashed out here. We end with a private moment between Alfred and Catwoman, where he tells her that he truly does think the world of her because of how she seems to be mending his heart. So naturally, part 10 brings us away from heartwarming as Tim Drake decides to attack Catwoman. Oh, I'm being a bit facetious. First, we move from heartwarming to IT work. Batman is inside the Bat computer investigating something, and Catwoman, like any friend or sibling who does not know how to fix computers, but knows someone who does, is sticking around to talk to them and shine a light for them. He explains to her how all these recent events could be orchestrated, even their relationship, but that's when Catwoman spots Tim Drake watching from the shadows and pulls him out. His response being to punch her. Ra's al Ghul had a sword embedded into this computer console. At the time, I was focused on the sword itself and its meaning. Its placement appeared random other than to draw my attention. Now I realize that Ra's specifically wanted to destroy my hard drive that was full of all the sexy emails Talia and I used to send each other. In doing so, I may have neglected the first rule as a detective. Never start a land war in Asia. Man, Sherlock Holmes was breaking that one all the time. Nothing is random. Losing at Mahjong that one time, totally intentional, nothing is random. Robin and Catwoman fight for a bit as Batman narrates about Tim, how he swore there would never be another Robin, but Tim is just so damn good at the job. And as much as I like Damian Wayne, the little brat, I've gotta say, I much prefer Tim in the role. He compliments Batman in a different sort of way than Dick or Jason did, especially with the fact that he wanted the role. Damian did too, but kid's got a chip on his shoulder the size of this review, which is why he worked better with Dick Grayson during the time he was Batman, the light-hearted Batman and the darker Robin. He's still good with Bruce, of course, but I think Tim just works better. Anyway, Batman puts a stop to the fight, Tim claiming that Selina's just manipulating him, but Bruce says that this was his choice, showing that he even confided his identity with her. With tensions high, Catwoman elects to take one of the bat cycles and get some air, only for it to be revealed to us that Tim and Bruce were just play acting. He had already told Tim about her and revealing himself to her. It's not said explicitly, but it seems to be that Bruce needs to be absolutely certain that Catwoman is not directly involved in all this, that their relationship wasn't a further manipulation by his new enemy, since it's very clear that said enemy knows that Bruce is Batman. It's just still kind of a dick move to lie and manipulate your girlfriend, dude.
Dick saw being Robin as a thrill. It's probably why he outgrew it. Jason saw being Robin as a game. It's probably what got him killed.
Well, that and the crowbar. I think the crowbar contributed a lot.
But Tim, I have to hand it to the boy. He wants to be the world's greatest detective. From what I've seen so far, he will be someday. Either that or a true crime podcaster. There's really only two career paths here.
There's more character stuff like that in the narration, but we need to move along in the plot. As Catwoman's ride through the rain, why the hell isn't Gotham flooded yet when pretty much every time we've seen it in this story, it's raining extremely hard? It is interrupted by Huntress showing up and seeming to try to run her off the road on her own motorcycle. When they finally stop, Huntress is clearly confused, but also revealing that she's in on the conspiracy too. Not against Batman, but she's been manipulated to be a part of it. Someone gave her money and equipment and he looked completely clean, but her being so close to Bruce when he fell in the alley was not a coincidence, and she knows that things are spiraling out of control. She wants to stop the person behind all this now too, but something is making her think that instead of fighting Catwoman, she's fighting herself. Batman and Robin show up, and of course Bruce knows what's affecting her, since he's seen it before. Scarecrow's fear toxin. Bruce jumps in to help, telling Robin to look out for someone observing these events, and said person punches Robin out and calls him a pretender. Scarecrow comes riding in on Huntress's motorcycle in a positively terrifying and awesome shot, especially with the lightning behind him. I would make a joke about a crisis event happening right now since the skies have turned red, but I'm not entirely off with that. More later. And Scarecrow is revealing why the villain is called Hush, even if a first-time reader wouldn't know it. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird. Then it turns out I got the wrong mockingbird, but fortunately, Mama kept the receipt. Bruce finally knocks him off the motorcycle, but he gets doused with some fear toxin while the singing continues. And if that billy goat won't pull, Mama's gonna buy you a cart and bull.
Why didn't you list that among our assets in the first place?
Batman's suspicions get worsened when he realizes where they are, a certain graveyard that no one should know about. The fear gas doesn't seem to affect Batman, much to Scarecrow's surprise.
You did the profile work. Used your expertise as a psychiatrist to exploit what they all wanted. The Joker, Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, Huntress, Catwoman. Me! You knew that I would make out with Catwoman without having showered or shaved! Didn't you? Didn't you?
Scarecrow speculates that the only reason the fear gas wouldn't affect him would be that his mind was already infected by something else. But he's quickly silenced by a batarang thrown by Hush. Batman demands to know who he is, and he finally takes off the bandages to reveal his identity and ending the issue. A resurrected Jason Todd. And this reveal right here has had a major influence over the years. In fact, while I wasn't reading Batman at the time, I tracked down the next issue specifically because of this reveal, and I wanted to know what the hell the deal was.
Jason Todd became Robin after Dick Grayson, hoping to harness the rage that had driven him throughout his life. I taught him how to fight. He knows all my secrets. Especially that thing I did with the Catwoman hug pillow. And he has been dead for years. Which explains why he's in a turtleneck. He must be really cold.
So, part 11, and Batman's putting the pieces together as Catwoman rescues Tim Drake. It's certainly possible for him to be alive again. After all, it's the DC universe. Superman and Green Arrow have died and come back. The grave that housed his body is empty and his corpse is gone. Ra's al Ghul said that a Lazarus pit was used recently, so that could have been used to resurrect him. And as for him being a villain, exiting the pit can drive you insane, so that might have happened to Jason. And the earlier clues match. A Batarang is what snapped Batman's rope line. He was dropped into Crime Alley, where he first met Jason Todd, when Jason was trying to steal the left front tire of the Batmobile, which is the one that was shot out. However, as Batman watches his movements and Jason rants about Batman failing to save him, it's very clear to Bruce. This is not Jason.
To make it perfect, for me to truly believe that this was Jason, he would have called me Bruce.
Well, he did just come back from the dead, and your brain starts decaying almost immediately when you die, so maybe the pit full of Mountain Dew can't necessarily grow back all the little details, especially if it drives you nuts. But yeah, Bruce points out that despite what this imposter is saying, Jason knew that he loved him, and he melts away, revealing it to be Clayface, who disappears. It was a fake. And hey, the Lazarus Pit was used recently, and a corpse doesn't age, so the aging up wouldn't make sense unless they weren't sure about how accurate his looks would be. What's more, Clayface might not have been able to replicate Jason's movements because of how long ago that was, but he could copy Nightwing's, which is what Bruce noticed. Huntress is already gone, having stolen the Bat-Cycle, and Catwoman says she doesn't appreciate being followed and the lack of trust from Bruce.
I trust you. I mean, I'm not billing you for the stolen Bat-Cycle, am I?
For what it's worth, I'm glad it wasn't Jason.
I'm not.
Oh?
Because the person or persons responsible are still out there.
True that. So, just gonna leave me here? I took the bike out here, and I live halfway across the city. It's speculated that a resurrected Jason Todd was supposed to be the ultimate villain of this story, but the higher-ups got cold feet. The clues were certainly laid out like that, but somehow I doubt it. After all, this still would have required someone to put Jason's body in the pit, and why wait so long for that? What's more, it would have required Jason to be working with Batman's rogues gallery, and somehow I have a hard time believing he'd be on board with that, especially the Joker. Manipulation maybe, but it's very clear that someone else was arranging this. And hell, how would Jason finance all this? Again, he met Batman when he tried to steal the Batmobile's tires. He was not exactly rolling in cash. No, someone else was responsible, and I think that was always the case. It was a great fake-out, though. The problem is that it was too good. The overwhelmingly positive reaction by the audience seeing a resurrected Jason Todd as a villain convinced DC to actually do it. Thus, Jason Todd's return to life via Superboy Prime punching a wall hard enough that reality altered. The idea being that Jason was never meant to die, and this was correcting the mistake. Too late. Jason would crawl out of his own grave, but the lack of oxygen during that time would cause brain damage. Talia would find him, realize who he is, and she and Ra's would hope to use him against Batman, but he never recovered, so Talia tossed him in a Lazarus pit to heal him up. In turn, she helped set him up and get in contact with the real Hush, whom we'll be meeting in a bit, and set up this little confrontation, where they'd pull a switcheroo. It starts off as Jason, but then he's replaced by Clayface, which is just utter bullcrap. It's one thing to resurrect Jason, but why retcon him into appearing here? Yeah, I get it. The reveal was cool, but it undermined this story by shoving in a ridiculous amount of backstory just so it can be the real Jason during this confrontation. And of course, most of you know the rest. Jason Todd would set himself up as the new Red Hood, being a villain for a while before eventually somehow ending up in Bruce's good graces despite being a murderer and all, and then was an anti-hero. What's funny is that in the build-up to Infinite Crisis, the explanation they were going to go with was that the resurrected Jason Todd wasn't resurrected, that this was a Jason Todd from Earth 2 or something who had never originally been Robin. I don't know if that'd be any better if they were still going to tie it into his appearance here, but still, there you go. And I know I'm a minority opinion on this one, but I hate Jason Todd as an anti-hero and still part of the Bat family. I much prefer him as either dead or resurrected as a villain. Either way, it's Batman's biggest failure, and the rest getting along with him after all he's done feels like bullcrap. Batman goes to talk to Oracle. Huntress is his only lead now, but unfortunately she's already ditched the Batbike, and they have no means of tracking her. However, Oracle's figured out something weird. When Bruce was back in the cave with the skull fracture, what made him think of Tommy Elliott? He says it's just he was a childhood friend and the best surgeon in the country, but there's more to it than that. What he was doing in the Batcomputer in the last issue was discovering an electronic relay that had been implanted in it. It's an impressive little box, and look what it can do.
Oracle, that's just my Google Stadia.
Why would you have Google Stadia?
Look, I just like the idea of streaming games, okay? I didn't even use it that much.
Someone had to plant the relay device, someone who knew the Batcomputer inside and out. The two realize who it was, and they arrange a meeting. We only see the back of them at first, another red herring to imply that Commissioner Gordon is the one who has betrayed Batman.
Why? Why betray me? I would have given you anything you needed. I had given you anything you needed. I never told Oracle that it was your Google Stadia. I wanted an Ouya!
And so he asks what was the 30 pieces of silver promised to betray him. And they turn around, revealing Harold. So right now, about 90% of you are staring at the screen, faces scrunched in confusion and going, who? And that's understandable. Not only is this an obscure character, not only is this a character who hadn't been seen in years, he's a character who hasn't even shown up or been mentioned in this story up until now. Harold was a minor supporting Batman character, first premiering in 1989. He was mute and had a severe kyphosis that gave him a hunchback. He was a genius with mechanical devices and electronics, the Penguin taking advantage of his good nature to make him design devices for him. Eventually, he turned on the Penguin, and Batman recruited him to basically act as the Batcave mechanic, showing up several times with new gadgets for him and repair a lot of the damaged equipment. Before this, he was last seen in No Man's Land helping rebuild Gotham. He only made a few dozen appearances over his existence, including here, so it's understandable why people not familiar with the Batman books would not know who the hell he is or why this reveal is in any way significant. Hell, we had all that build-up and clues to Jason Todd being Hush, even to the point of having him appear next to a big sign that says Robins, him getting multiple mentions throughout the story, Bruce repeatedly comparing the three Robins, and Harold? Pfft. Nothing. For a mystery story that's been pretty decent about laying out clues, even if they're seemingly obvious ones, not including even a single thing concerning Harold was a pretty big oversight. He reveals that this new villain found him, repaired his vocal cords and spine, and only wanted the relay implanted as compensation. The guy already knew who Batman was under the mask. Harold says that even if he was being tricked, he always believed Batman would win through. However, before Harold can reveal the identity of who did this, he takes 2 bullets, one in the head, one in the heart. What is a friend? It's a dead body, given the track record of Bruce's friends in this story. A single soul dwelling in 2 bodies, which means paying 2 rents. And thus we come to our final issue.
They say when you kill a man, you not only take away what he was, but everything he will ever be. My God, Hush is a weeping angel!
We should behave to our friends as we would wish our friends to behave to us. So, betray them for reparative surgery?
Aristotle. The killer quotes Aristotle.
God, what if the killer in this story had been a modern, edgier version of Bookworm? Oh, hey, this panel of Batman and Harold looks familiar.
Punk is nothing but death, and crime, and the rage of a beast.
Evil draws men together. So give us a hug while I murder some more people.
More Aristotle.
Maxie Zeus?
Which enemy do I have who quotes Aristotle?
No. Clearly this is a new guy. And following the conventions of Batman villains, his real name is Ari S. Tuttle. The guy just starts unloading on Batman, Bruce realizing that killing Harold and the revelations he brought on are meant to distract him and keep him off balance. He's trying to figure out who the hell this guy is. Deadshot? The trench coat is generic, and he's seen a bunch of different people wearing it lately. Even Harold. At least it makes for easier cosplay.
I believe Bruce Wayne owns several. My God! I'm Hush!
He sees that Hush is wearing Thomas Elliott's jade pendant, and indeed he reveals that he's Tommy, saying Bruce's name to make it clear that he is the final opponent here, and not Clayface. Of course, he's still hiding his face and not taking off his bandages to prove who he is, and I think that's a mistake of the story. I think Loeb was hedging his bets on changing the identity in a later story, that after the big reveal of Jason Todd, that readers would be disappointed that it was Tommy Elliott. And they were. Even today, people have expressed their annoyance at the mystery story just turning out to be him. After all, he's the only other new character introduced in this, so it's not like there was a huge bunch of suspects to pick from if it wasn't Jason. Hell, they ended up changing it when they adapted this story to an animated movie. One I haven't seen, because I don't really watch those, but I know plenty of people were annoyed with that reveal too. So Tommy reveals his motivation for all this, referring to the night his parents died. Bruce thinks that it's because of the broken promise, that his father was only able to save his mother, but rather Tommy reveals that he actually attempted to murder his parents. He cut the brake line on their car and insisted their driver stay home. He wanted them dead, and Bruce's father ruined that. He couldn't murder his own mother afterwards, since it would raise suspicion, so he had to live with her for years and slowly wait for her to die from cancer. And that's another thing that makes this reveal so disappointing for people. Hush's motivation is not particularly complex. He was a greedy bastard of a child who tried to murder his parents and was mad that he never got to have the money early. And he's mad at Bruce because his dad saved his mom's life. That's pretty much it. An explosion of C4 on the Batmobile knocks Bruce down, where Tommy reveals that he plans to drag him to Arkham and publicly unmask him for all the inmates to see, but Bruce is saved by the arrival of Jim Gordon and Harvey Dent. So I guess when Harvey went to Gordon and he said Batman needed their help, he meant, like, he'll need our help in a week or so. Let's just sit around until then. Hush is pissed because Harvey was in on this plan too, and he's not supposed to be here. And indeed, that's his downfall. Harvey Dent is legitimately trying to reform here, and Hush didn't anticipate that, allowing him to shoot Hush into the nearby Gotham River. While Bruce dives into the water to try to find him, and fails, Gordon demands Harvey surrender the gun. He admits that he was the one who shot Tommy Elliott in the alleyway, revealing that it was actually Clayface, just like how he'd faked being Jason Todd. Tommy Elliott was the one who did the reconstructive surgery on his face. Look at that, Jimbo. It stopped raining. Pity most of the city's now under Aquaman's domain at this point. 2 weeks later, the pieces start falling into place to wrap everything up. Maybe that's why the Tommy Elliott reveal also feels so hollow. They have all these loose ends to tie up. First is Huntress. Tommy Elliott approached her as a good Samaritan and claimed to just want to finance her operations. And of course, he looked clean when she looked into him. Bruce brings Superman in on his revelations and whatnot, also pointing out what the hidden relay did. Subliminal messages. It flashed Tommy Elliott's name and picture every time he used the computer. Thus, when he was injured in the fall, he was the only doctor he could think of. While, of course, he could have killed him on the operating table, Tommy wanted the big revenge game. The real purpose was to implant a tracking device at the base of his skull, so he'd always know where Bruce was to enact his plan.
Burn it. I could hurt. Do it!
And he does so.
Good! Now my brain focus sundial! I need scissors 61! Damn you and your lemonade! Green Arrow!
I'm Clark.
That's what I said! Pigs from a gun!
But of course, it's still not over yet. See, it's one thing for Tommy to have this master plan, but he needed the cooperation of Batman's villains for this. And some random doctor showing up, even with money, isn't going to necessarily get them to play along. He needed some kind of in-between contact for this, and Batman heads to Arkham Asylum to confront him. He got the synthetic kryptonite for Ivy's lipstick. He and Tommy Elliott promised Killer Croc they would cure his mutation, one caused by a virus that they infected him with, but it's something simple that the feds can figure out. Poison Ivy just wanted money. Scarecrow was happy to provide the psychological profile stuff. Harley Quinn just loved working with the Joker. The Joker was in when he heard the Jason Todd gag. Clayface also wanted money. And the Lazarus Pit Ash was deliberately left behind in the hope that Batman would take Ra's out of the game, since he wasn't playing. How do you know it was me?
Elliott's medical records are in storage in Philadelphia. You didn't use your real name, but Arthur Wynn. The man who invented the crossword puzzle. Damn you, Arthur Wynn! I should have known it was you! I always liked Sudoku more!
No, of course, it was an alias for the Riddler. the true mastermind behind Hush. And this is why the Tommy Elliott reveal doesn't really bother me that much. You have the obvious reveal with Tommy, but nobody guessed the Riddler's part in this. It turns out the Riddler had a brain tumor and was diagnosed as terminal. He used the Lazarus Pit to save his own life.
When you came out of the pit, you must have been quite mad.
Not mad. Angry. I used to be somebody in this town. Now everybody has a gimmick. In Hush's case, he's got like 5. Yeah, David Willis of Short-Packed and Dumbing of Age fame once described Hush as surgeon mummy trenchcoat Play-Doh guy whose name is Hush, because the dude couldn't really nail down what his gimmick was. Which is totally inaccurate. Hush's thing was Aristotle, not Play-Doh. Since Tommy Elliott's mother was dying from cancer, the Riddler thought he'd pay a fortune for knowing how to cure it. But it turns out since he knew the Riddler was from Gotham, he recruited the Riddler for this whole thing to kill Bruce Wayne.
So, you came up with the bandaged man in the trench coat.
Hush.
Hush?
It started as a joke. You know, we had to keep it secret. Though the Joker kept insisting on calling him Shush. Then Scarecrow starts singing the song. Hush, Little Baby. It's about a kid who can't be satisfied. And it's stuck. I really like that explanation. And that's kind of the real problem with the character in the story. We don't really get a sense of that for Tommy Elliott. We spend so much time establishing the friendship with Bruce that we never really see his negative qualities. Insatiable greed, anger at his parents, anything like that. It's why the reveal of his motives feels so unsatisfying. But of course, in order for this whole thing to work, they needed to know Batman's secret identity. And like the Riddler said, he wasn't driven mad when he exited the Lazarus Pit. He was angry, and it gave him the clarity to finally realize that Bruce Wayne is Batman, much to his delight.
What time is it when an elephant sits on a fence?
What?
What time is it when an elephant sits on a fence?
Time to get a new fence. Everyone knows that one. It's worthless.
Wrong! The answer is, it's whatever time it is that the Riddler decides to reveal my identity, because I'm gonna send a bunch of elephants to sit on his fence if he tells anyone! Look, my brain has gone through a lot these last few days.
No, of course, Batman's not worried because riddles are the good Mr. Nigma's compulsion and addiction.
And a riddle that everyone knows the answer to is worthless.
It's really kind of clever. The Riddler, honest to God, cannot tell anyone. Because if he does, he won't be the smartest man in the room anymore with it. But of course, Batman can hedge his bet. If he does decide to break character and reveal it, well, Ra's al Ghul still wants to know who he used his Lazarus Pit. The League of Assassins is not going to be impressed with his brain teasers. However, the one detail left that he refuses to answer is what happened to Jason Todd's body. Which, of course, as I said, would be revealed in the build-up to Infinite Crisis. And thus we reach the ending. Batman and Catwoman overlooking Harold's grave as they talk about their relationship. They both wonder if their relationship was a manipulation by the Riddler and Thomas Elliott, especially with the subliminal messages and all.
Or we both could be under Ivy's spell.
Hush.
Why would you say that?
Why did you say that name?
Yeah, he didn't really tell her the Hush name at all, so she's naturally taken aback when he's so rough upon that reveal. As such, it seems to indicate that, for now, the relationship is over. Still, she encourages him to learn to trust. And so our comic ends with Batman posing all cool in front of the gravestone, which sadly someone apparently has chiseled the end into. Personally, I think this comic is great, but I understand why some don't like it. When you break down the actual mystery and the clues presented, and aspects like Harold, or the red herring of Two-Face, or the attempt to deflect attention away from Tommy Elliott, yeah, it's a bit scattershot, but the presentation is so good, so dramatic and well executed that it's deeply enjoyable. I get a lot out of this story, even though if you look at it deep enough, it's rather goofy, overcomplicated, and dumb. It's kind of like Infinite Crisis in that regard. The spectacle is so good that it's easy to forget the bad parts of it. It's certainly not a perfect story, but as a deep dive into Batman's thoughts about his friends and loved ones, it's phenomenal. The mystery's resolution is unsatisfying in most respects, but it's such a wild ride that I can't help but enjoy it. That being said, there is a bit of a problem with the story because this is comic books, and we have this issue of not leaving well enough alone. See, this was not the end for Hush. Hush is a character with lots of diminishing returns, in my opinion. The best aspect of him was the mystery of who he was and what he wanted. Once that was over with, well, he's not particularly deep. They kept bringing him back, and the cracks started to form. He's just some asshole rich guy who's jealous of Bruce Wayne to the point of goofy compulsion. And he's also Surgeon Mummy Trenchcoat Aristotle guy whose name is Hush. The first big return for him was in Batman Gotham Knights, collected in a trade called Hush Returns, and isn't even really a Hush story. Yeah, it follows up on Hush and the Riddler, but it's more a follow-up to The Killing Joke, and a questionable one at that for a number of reasons. It's not necessarily bad, but it's also a completely unnecessary story, and there's just a lot of garbage in the ongoing narrative related to Hush that lasted for the rest of the book's run. Continuity hiccups along the way. The more prominent follow-up came during the time Paul Dini was writing Detective Comics in 2009. During this time, the Riddler got himself a little taste of amnesia and forgot Batman's identity, so that got dealt with, but Hush was still a factor. And thus was the storyline Heart of Hush, where Dini decided to expand on his backstory a bit and try to go more in depth with his hatred of his parents and in turn his hatred of Bruce. His father was physically abusive and a heavy alcoholic, which contributed to the car crash, but his mother was domineering to the point of smothering him. She was the one who would quote Aristotle to him, and it only got worse after her husband died. She'd keep Tommy away from any activity that could put his life at risk and controlled his money, becoming emotionally abusive by comparing him to Bruce Wayne all the time. It was a decent story, but Hush goes full supervillain in it to ridiculous extremes, even altering his face to resemble Bruce's, intending to steal his identity. And he did so during the time Bruce was dead after Final Crisis, which the Bat family took advantage of. Not much else to get into. In the end, Hush is just not that interesting a bad guy, but his original story, I think, is still worth a read after all these years. Next time, another Patreon-sponsored review, and hopefully a much shorter one, as we look at another 2 episodes of Kaizoku Sentai Gokaiger.
I'm sitting on my couch reviewing comics, the worst words that you will ever see. It's sad that comic books are for geeks, but they're not. They're for everybody. If you doubt that I am a man, I am a man.
Why Jason? Why bring the boy into it?
Question: how many times have you beaten me? Answers: 5, 10, 100. But question: what is Batman's greatest defeat?
Of course. When I lost my sponsorship with OddStar.
Hello, my friends. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon or purchase a t-shirt via Teespring or Shark Robot. Thanks for watching!